Hi, I'm Lindsay, and this is Kinda Healthy Podcast. Since it's October, I decided I wanted to do some spooky episodes this month. So I decided to bring up some real-life scary topics. So today I want to talk about black salve. There are two very different types of black salves. First, there's the black salve that's a drawing salve. You use it for things like if you get a splinter or a thorn, or maybe you have a somewhat deep wound and it helps get the gunk up to the top to help it heal. But there's also the black salve for skin abnormalities. People use this salve for things like moles, skin blemishes, and even skin cancer. I saw an example of a lady who had some skin cancer on the tip of her nose, and she didn't want to have the surgery for it. She wanted to see if there was an alternative. But what she found was black salve. And black salve is a caustic paste that burns or corrodes organic tissue. The active ingredients that give the ability to kill the tissue are zinc chloride, which is a caustic salt similar to lye, and sanguinarine, a toxic alkaloid found in the bloodroot plant. So she used this salve, she put it on her nose, and she slept overnight. And when she woke up to a big, crusty, black scab on her nose where the cells had died, which is called an S-scar, a patch of black, dead tissue. And within that, there's necrosis, when an abnormal amount of cells die in an unregulated and catastrophic manner, like by a toxin like a snake bite or a severe injury. When cells are exposed to these kind of stresses, they release an enzyme, and those enzymes aren't supposed to be released outside of the cell in large quantities. And then that enzyme breaks down the membranes of the neighboring cells, which cause those cells to release their enzymes, and so on, resulting in a domino effect, which leads to massive cell die-off. And you have this big scab with all this nasty, dead stuff underneath. And it ended up eating all the way to her nasal passages, and she needed to get her nose reconstructed. She had to get a forehead flap from the top of her head put down onto her nose, had that sewn, waited for it to heal, and then she didn't like the way that the reconstruction looked, so then she had to go and have plastic surgery to make her nose have a better shape. But she did all this just because she didn't want to have the small surgery of removing the tumor, and instead she ended up with this horrible scar and, the reconstructive surgery. She had to get cartilage from behind her ear put in her nose to help, give it support and everything. And all of this just because she didn't want to have the more simple surgery of just having the tumor removed. So, just because something is natural or homeopathic doesn't mean it's safe or won't have side effects. Arsenic and lead are natural too. There's no regulation for the making of black salve. Especially if you buy it online, you could be getting it from anywhere or anybody, and there's no telling the ingredients or the concentration of ingredients in the product. Looking this up, I saw that there was a video of these nuns making it, and they were like, it's cloister-grown herbs and all this stuff, but it doesn't matter if it's still, tissue damaging and cell killing things that you're putting in there. It doesn't matter if they don't have pesticides on them. They're bad either way. The FDA has put black salve on their list of illegally sold cancer cures, and the American Association of Dermatology has issued a warning strongly suggesting people not use black salve for any skin condition, especially cancer. One of the problems with trying to treat cancer in this way is because there's no way to know if you've removed the cancer. It may be removed at the surface level, but it can still be there under the skin, growing and potentially spreading. I saw a news report about a man who had a large tumor on his shoulder, and he used the black salve to remove it. It didn't go down and eat too far into his arm or anything like that, but the tumor came back a few months later, and he used it again, and the tumor came back again. I think he did that about 3-4 times that I can remember just in this short news report that this man has been dealing with this for, I think, a couple years now. But that just goes to show that the cancer wasn't removed. It was only taken off on the top. So there was still cancer underneath. And I mean, that's just concerning because you don't know if that was a cancer that was going to stay in that area, or maybe it was potentially spreading through his body. And all this time he was taking to reapply the black salve, was just making him feel like he was making progress, but it might have really been the cancer making progress in his body. On the more mild end, you may have skin irritation and scarring that may not be reversible, but some people say that they have good experiences and some people say that they have bad. Maybe it's a case of more diluted black salve isn't as dangerous as a more potent batch, but it seems like something you wouldn't really want to gamble with. Some people reporting that they've had a good experience may just not have had enough time to see if whatever issue that they were trying to remove actually doesn't come back. So you may hear about a positive experience, but maybe the real truth is that a few months down the line, they're back in the same position again. And you really can never tell when somebody's telling you immediately after and they're excited. Now, I'm not totally against homeopathic or natural solutions for things. I think it's a good idea to have integrated medicine, having East and West together. I think there's no replacement for surgery sometimes, but it is good to also take into consideration good health, good eating, and doing other things that you can do to boost your immune system and have both working together. I just think it's a really scary thing when people try to do something good for themselves or natural for themselves and end up hurting themselves more. I think that's a really scary story, in my opinion. If you look this stuff up online, you will see a lot of scary looking pictures, people with big scabs on their bodies. When the thing falls off, you're left with a big hole. And sometimes just the way that it eats down in your fatty tissues and just like removes the whole tip of your nose or part of your face is scary. It's like you're putting that flesh-eating bacteria on your skin voluntarily. I know it has to be scary to find out something like you have skin cancer or a tumor, and nobody wants to get surgery right off the bat. But to be in a vulnerable position like that and have people out there that are more than willing to take advantage of you and give you something just so they can get your money and they don't care what happens to you is something we all have to really make sure to be aware of. I had never heard about black salve until just recently. So when you do hear about something and you hear that it is a natural cure or just any kind of solution for any problem, I think it's a really good idea to look that thing up and look for any stories from the opposite side of the spectrum. If you go into it looking for the positive stories, that's most likely going to be the only thing you find. But I think it's important to also try to look for those bad reviews and those horror stories if you can find them, because that might give you a better idea of the actual picture that you're dealing with. And there are a lot of factors at play. Maybe somebody knows that they could be potentially hurting somebody with this, and maybe they don't. Maybe somebody who is overly excited to try to remove this thing might use too much or leave it on too long or use it too often. There are a lot of factors in these unregulated things that could possibly give you bad results. So be careful out there. Make sure to do your research, and I'll be back next week with a couple more scary topics to talk about. Thanks for listening.